Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ashland Fly Shop Regional Fishing Report for the 6th or 7th of August. First week of August, dog days of summer. We're into it here, and we want to tell you what we're doing, what's happening in the fly fishing world in this wonderful Southern Oregon region. So hang on to your hats. Here we go. All right, so we'll hop right in with the Rogue River, the Upper Rogue, our backyard river. We love it. Yeah, so steelhead season, dog days of summer, all this stuff, fires, smoke, COVID, it's all happening. Hooray! So, but what a great way to kind of clear your mind from a lot of the stuff and get out and doing some fishing. So we do have some steelhead showing up in the Upper River. I've gone through a lot in the fishing reports in the past, but basically the Rogue is a tailwater, and so it's a bottom draw. We do have that cool water running down for several miles down below the dam. Our closest place that we feel comfortable fishing is probably Tuvell Park in the mornings. It's starting to feel cooler at night and stuff. The days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer, which is really great. You know, that's what the first thing that we see that really cools the river off. So the way that we really approach looking for steelhead this time of year is in the mornings. You know, really fishing in the morning. That's when the bite's going to be the best. That's when the fish are going to feel the most comfortable. So, you know, from that daybreak until around 10 or 11 is going to be really the prime time. Most of our guide trips that we're doing now are really, you know, taking advantage of that early morning time, and in the afternoon just gets pretty warm. Now, if you're fishing up closer to the dam above like the town of Shady Cove up there, obviously you're going to have cool water, you know, all day long. And there's certainly fish traveling through there. There's 700 fish to the hatchery at this point, so obviously there's some decent number of fish spread out up there. And that can be some good fishing. We tend to, here from Ashland, we tend to focus a little bit more on Shady Cove down through Tuvell Park and in that area. So we're a little bit more familiar with that, but still some really good fishing and some good water temps to be had in there. Just really encourage you to fish that earlier part of the day, that morning part of the day, which is really nice time to be there. Now is a great time to use traditional flies. If you're swinging flies, Scandi lines, longer leaders, even floating dry flies can be a very good way to approach fishing this time of year. These early steelhead, they will move aggressively to flies. They will move out of the water, you know, wherever they're at in the water column to find the fly. So now's a good time to get a steelhead to chase your fly down instead of having to like feed it directly to them. So yeah, a lot of that great traditional stuff, green butt skunks, and we have a lot of really unique patterns in the store for that. So yeah, got some really good bugs to check out. You can also fish your sink tips. You can also fish your moderate sized intruders. That's always a good tactic. So if you're really just into sticking with the Skagit for the year round, fishing sink tips, fish will absolutely respond to that. If you're a nympher, great time as well. You know, same program as forever. Just those hothead stones and kind of mixing it up with the bottom fly, dropper fly. You know, between, you know, some of the new jig head type bugs that we're seeing, pheasant tails, copper johns, all the same stuff works really well year to year. So, and flows are down, as you can imagine. You know, flows are probably around 800 coming out of the dam, you know, 1200, 1100 down through Dodge Bridge and down through there. So it's comfortable and maybe a little bit bony. If you're new to the drift boat, keep your eye out for ledge rock poking out, but otherwise it's pretty easy getting around, pretty easy wading out there at this point. As far as the flows being down. So it's pretty inviting, great way to spend the morning, getting out fishing, you know, for a few hours, and that's just a good amount of time to do it. Put a few hours in, see if you can find one, and then get on with your day. That's what we're seeing on the Upper Rogue. Holy water, I haven't heard too much about recently. This can be a pretty neat time of year to fish streamers up there. Fishing streamers in the holy water on little sink tips and stuff, you know, because water's a little bit warmer and the fish are aggressively kind of moving around, but there's not a lot of bug activity. So you might try to feed them some streamers, or you could do some nymphing with some of the smaller new Euro style jig nymphs could work well up there, or little tungsten zebra midges, things like that, in tandem with some other larger point flies. Just some standard kind of Pat's rubber legs or things like that can work pretty good. So those could be good tactics. You might see a little midge hatch at the very end of the day, but the holy water gets, you know, a little bit quiet, a little bit stale this time of year. But if you're going up there, I'd be fishing some streamers up there probably, you know, kind of poking around for a fish that way, and you know, you could have a really good afternoon up there. The water's really cool, nice and cold up there, so it feels good on the wet wading legs up there. So that's a good spot. Quick little NorCal roundup. Talked with our friends at the fly shop this morning down there. Lower Sac is really just chugging along, you know, putting out some really nice fish. We see our friends AC Fly Fishing down there doing really well day to day. So Confluence Outfitters, their guides always produce some nice fish down there. So Lower Sac is always a really viable bet if you can like stand the heat, but it's always cooler on the river. You know, it's always 10 degrees cooler at least on the river. So good place to be. A little bit more NorCal. The McCloud has really been suffering from the Mud Creek Glacier. A lot of silt running through the reservoir, a lot of silt running right down through the McCloud. So right up there at the top, you know, Ash Camp's probably going to be pretty off color in there, and further down as you go, you get some of those creeks come in and it'll clear up a bit, but I think it's really suffering from that this year. Pitt Rivers, a lot of good fishing to do there, but you really want to focus on Pitt 3 below Lake Britain. You've got the coolest water there. Again, maybe hang it up by midday, you know, into the early afternoon when the water temps warm up a bit. But that stretch can be really good in there for that morning time. Sounds like it's been fishing pretty well. Hat Creek's a spring creek, so you should find nice cool water in there. Same with Fall River. Upper Sacramento, fishing up top in the Cantera Loop section, I think is really where you want to focus right now. Maybe down to about Dunsmuir. You know, that upper section's got a lot of good canopy cover in there to keep the temps down, but because you go down further below Dunsmuir, it's just like north-south. It's right in the solar sink line there, so it's going to get pretty warm in there. So staying above Dunsmuir, I think, is the right thing to do right now. Don't forget your thermometer. Really want to mention all the fishing that we're talking about, all the cold water fishing, trout fishing that we do. Don't forget that thermometer this year. Make sure you have it. Make sure you're checking the temps, because, you know, things can get off a little bit, or you might run into a couple really hot days or something, and it could really change where you're fishing. And just really want to take care of these fish as much as we can this year. Make sure they get through this season and are there for us the next. So so that's a bit of a roundup what we're seeing on in NorCal. Lastly, we'll just touch briefly on the Klamath Basin. Klamath Lake sounds pretty interesting this year. I've had some kind of mixed reports, but it sounds like there's been a lot of fish activity in the Rocky Point area. Fish kind of nosing up around into the creeks and stuff there. I think there always is, but it seems like maybe a little more noticeable this year. So the Rocky Point area, I think, would be a fairly good bet. There's a lot of spring heads and little creeks, and the fish seem to kind of congregate there a little bit more than we see them in other parts of the lake. Then the two main rivers that run in, the Wood and the Williamson. Haven't heard much from the Wood really at all, although we should be getting fairly close to the hopper hatch that we see out there. That can be really boom or bust, so we'll try to keep you in the loop on that. And the Williamson sounds like it's been pretty good. Paul McDonald, who works with us a bit out there, he has had some really good fishing this year so far. Sounds like the fish are moving in there in a reliable way, consistent way, and you know, he's seen some really nice fish. So Williamson can be a pretty darn good bet midsummer. Can be quite good. Really tough to walk in, really just a couple of spots there around 97 and there at the Chiloquin boat ramp, which has been completely redone. So not a lot of walk-in, but definitely a nice place to drift. Interesting place, kind of a tough place to crack the code if you're just going for a quick trip, but you know, get yourself a guide out there and get a sense of it, and that's really the best way that we've seen to be productive out there. Whoa, so that's what we're talking about for the first part of August. You know, this is really a kind of a transition time here as we go, you know, more into our fall season. You know, August pushes us into September, where we really start to see water temps kind of come down, see a few more cloudy days, hopefully, and really transition to that fall time. It can be a really fun time to fish early on because not a lot of people are too focused on it. So early morning steelhead fishing on the Rogue can be a really, really fun thing to do this time of year. We do have smoke in the valley. We've seen it kind of come and go. Today's beautiful. The last couple days were pretty rough. So if you want to give us a call beforehand and check in, we'll do our best to give you kind of a forecast of what we see for smoke. But we do have a handful of fires around us, and so we're kind of getting it from a few different angles now. But boy, the temperature's been beautiful the last couple days, and it just kind of feels like we're, you know, trying to make that transition into fall. So hey, thanks so much. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Always happy to share information. Give us a call if there's any more detail we can provide you, and appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.